Amataki Hopi. This is Nick Estes, live with the Red Nation Podcast. We are joined by a special guest, a friend of mine, somebody who I met on this journey doing Red Nation work. It's JJ Otero. JJ, do you want to introduce yourself to our audience here and maybe talk a little bit about what you do?
Sure thing. Good morning, Nick. It's been a while since we've talked, but like you said, we met on some lonely reservation roads out in the Navajo Nation years ago. And so, yeah. But my name is JJ Otero. I'm a full-time artist. What that means is very fluid. And in this case, what we're highlighting is I've been playing music for years, ever since I was in high school. And so I've always written songs, and so that's the thing I fell in love with years ago as a teenager, being able to sing, and it's mostly singing that I enjoy. I play guitar just to accompany myself, and so that's kind of the beginning of what being an artist for me was. And then so now currently I work full time as a silversmith, so I make jewelry, and so it's a means to make a living, and I really absolutely enjoy it because I was able to unplug from the system, or corporatism, and just be able to make a living for myself and my family, and my needs are met. And it's a very craft oriented industry, and yet at the same time, it's really fulfilling in terms of being free from a lot of the stuff that comes with the corporate world.
Yeah, I think the first time we met was we were doing a fundraiser or something. I can't remember. And you came out and you played some songs acoustic, and then I think you had your full band come out later, and we did a fundraiser. I think it was at the Pueblo Cultural Center in Albuquerque, if I'm correct.
Yeah, it's been quite some time. Yeah, I've done various things for the Red Nation, and it always generally involved music. So yeah, it's always been good for me and my own political leanings to help in that way.
Yeah. So before we get into it, Sina, can you cue up the song? We'll listen to it. We'll listen to a little bit. This is off a new album that you're working on. We can play for our audience here. They can listen. If you're listening live, watching live, you can see us. We're just gonna sit here and just tune out. So hope you enjoy this music.
My Indian people, my beautiful people, full of heart and full of strength. Not long ago, we were forced to leave our homes. Our relatives died along the way. We cried and still cry, generations of pain. Yet to this day, we still remain. No, the U.S. soldiers, they killed my family, children, elders, and everyone in between. Washington is not our government. We will survive. We will resist. The elders cried. The children heard their own names. The youth is inspired. They're not afraid. language and laws. The voices of strength blasting through bullhorns. We will resist. We will resist. Ah, yeah, we will resist. Survive, we will resist. We will survive, we will resist. We will survive, we will resist. Oh,
That's the song Resist by JJ Otero on his new upcoming album. I feel like I've always wanted to be a radio DJ. I think I have a good voice for it.
Yeah, you have a good, nice resonant voice. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I used to have a radio show on Sunday evenings at the university I went to. It was called Cowboys and Indians, and I would just play like native music. We have a lot of country music and stuff, and like Lakota people. But anyways, man, like that song was awesome. I remember when you said to me yesterday, or not yesterday, was it like 2 days ago?
Yeah.
And I was like, man, we got to have this guy on. This is, your music, you call it resistance rock. And it, I think before we went live, you were saying that the term resist is kind of like overused. But maybe you can talk a little bit about the inspiration behind this song, because the last album you came out with was, I think, in 2017. And that was like, the year that we entered into the first Trump administration. Now you're coming out with another one in 2025, and it's Trump 2, still resistant. But yeah, maybe talk a little bit about the inspiration for this new album and this new song.
So this song is actually written a long time ago, and is in response to some of the writings of Dr. Jennifer Dennett Dale. So she wrote a book about the Long Walk and some of the things that happened around it, and who were the instigators, and so originally the song was written from a Navajo perspective. So the original versions went like, my Navajo people, my beautiful people, full of heart. And so it was a song specifically written about Huerte and what happened there, the forced march from Navajo lands out to Fort Sumner at the orders of all the military, all the way up to Abraham Lincoln. And so that was a very specific kind of come to Jesus moment song that I just the songs for me have a real they're part of a cathartic process for me. On a day-to-day, I have a real short fuse in terms of getting angry about things. And so music has become that salve, or that way to uh, tease out those thoughts that are making me upset or making me angry, and put it into words. And luckily, I have bandmates that support that, and I'm able to write these songs, and they're able to come in and help me produce a song such as that. So the inspiration was Suerte, but I modified it for the larger listening audience, because what happened at Fuerte, it was not an isolated incident. It happened nationwide to many different nations.
Yeah, I think this time period of Huelde and the long walk here, I'm calling from Minnesota, Mokoche, which is Ochete Shakoi or Dakota homelands. There was also the Dakota and Ho-Chunk exiles who were removed from the state, and still to this day were never allowed to really return homes. And this was under the auspices of the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln, who signed the death warrants of 38 Dakota patriots who were hanged in a mass execution. So yeah, this there is resonance with what's happened, or what happened up north around that same time. And listening to your music and the albums that you've come out with, I mean, it's kind of like, you are like, when I first heard you, it was like the experience, I guess, what the vibe I got was, this guy knows what it's like to live in a border town. This guy, is not just performing for a white audience to kind of get sympathy. He's actually writing like working class Navajo / indigenous music.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about those kind of inspirations, and how you got back into writing and recording music?
Yeah, so the hiatus really was just a financial one, and then also distance from my band. I lived in Albuquerque for years and worked nonprofit for a bunch of years as an IT um, executive. So after leaving some of that, I wasn't close to the band anymore. I was back here on the res, and I found, like, the first couple of nights I came home, I saw there's no light pollution at night. There's no noise pollution, and it just really reconnected with the childhood memories I had of the place. And so I'll always think about resistance in terms of, who are we resisting for, or what are we resisting for? And we're resisting for what this the community, the family members, at least that's my perspective. Is just I remember early on, when on one of our conversations we talked, I always felt like, as a songwriter, as an artist, it was kind of a performative for me to not be out on the front lines, and back here, writing songs about the experience, and I really felt bad about it in that way. And then I remember you telling me that that ooh, there's many places where this resistance can happen, and everybody has a different role. It's not always on the front lines. And so I've carried that since our conversations with me quite a bit, or just I appreciate those comments, because they help me understand a little bit better. And since then, I've I've thought about what I'm doing back here and taking care of my parents. So that's another part of what I'm trying to do. Um, while they may be able to get along on their own, the larger population tends to forget them and think primarily of individualism versus, homes where there's several family members just living in the same place. And there's a bad meme and a joke in there about being a single older man in their parents' home, but I embrace it.
You just achieved native uncle status. That's it.
Yeah. But I contribute. I'm not. What's that? What they call the? I forget. It's kind of a funny term that they use about the male that's at home that doesn't contribute, that takes and takes and takes, and yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. No. It's. I think what you're talking about is there's this kind of disparagement of multi-generational family homes, and if you grow up in a native home, or even just like a working class home, typically you have generational families in one home. You can have grandparents taking care of grandkids, which often happens. But yeah, that's it's the kind of impulse is to have your own home, a single family home, to not have these sort of familial connections or the kinship that is valued, I think, very much in Native communities, not just Navajo, but also across the board. And I can see in the reflection of your glasses the beautiful blue sky in the Southwest that I miss so much. We don't get that here. And the fresh air, the dry fresh air, high altitude. It's it's a different, like listening to this music, and I listened to your older album, and listening to this music that you sent me today, these two songs that we're talking about, kind of really brought me back to that time period when I was down in the Southwest, and there was a lot of violence, still is, against Native people. I mean, there was a really tragic and horrific murder of a young Navajo woman recently. I don't want to get into the details, but she was essentially dismembered. I don't know who the killer was or what, but it shows you that this kind of ongoing genocidal onslaught is a 21st century phenomenon. It's not something that ended, with the long walk, or ended with certain federal policies, but it's ongoing. And especially now in this moment, we see increased intensification and assault on tribal sovereignty, and attack on Native people, specifically in so-called border states. But also a lot of this violence happens not in these kind of like rural, isolated pockets of poverty, as everyone imagines reservations, our homelands to be, but actually happens in cities, and border towns. And I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about some of the experiences you've had in border towns and how it's influenced your music. I think you have a song that's called like 100 Proof. That talks a little bit about those experiences and the discrimination that Native people face off reservation.
So 100 Proof Salvation is it's a song that I wrote after I think a couple of days in Gallup, of all places. Gallup is not necessarily a border town to where I live, but it's a border town to the Navajo Nation. And so a lot of those discrimination or racist things that go on in that city is really prevalent, and it's not veiled. It's out in the open sometimes, and with some of those folks. And so that was a direct response. And Gallup most patriotic city or something like that. And also there's a lot of religion there, or Christianity. I often think of this racism and separation from, or putting us into them categories is a direct result of, or directly correlated with Christianity. I went to Bible college and studied Bible for 3 years, and so I know a lot about like the masochistic and killing of children and those kinds of things that's within the Bible that kind of gets overlooked. And so that feeds into this manifest destiny. And I sing in a song things about the product of manifest destiny. And welcome, the opening lyrics start, welcome to my town. Really the gist is, this is my town. From a white perspective, or a settler perspective. This is my town. You're going to believe in my Jesus. And this is my money. Yeah, so it's very much, and the experience is just, it's just hard to explain, but it's there, and it's just, you have to have your head on a swivel sometimes, depending on the greater political climate. So yeah.
We have a question from one of our patrons or subscribers, and they wanted to ask specifically about, what is your earliest memory of music?
I can tell a story about my earliest memory. As a child, I was given a nickname, JJ Radio Station. And I don't remember any of that, but my uncles named me that because apparently as a child, I would walk around with an AM radio. And the ones that had batteries, there's no infrastructure or electricity out here during those times when I was a child. And so I would use that, and I would sing along to the popular songs that were playing on like KTNN or KNDN, all Navajo based programming, radio programming. And of course that was like Chet Atkins, all those old school, pre I don't know, it's just the old country, and even old classics like Creedence Clearwater Revival. So those are what I was told were my memories. But my earliest memories, honestly, are singing in church, the local mission. And it got to a point where I was leading the congregation in starting songs. And I just remember thinking of it, that it was just such an honor to lead these hymns. I even had like a little pitch pipe. I would go, and then that was my, to give me the bass note or two, start the song. Yeah, so that's my earliest memories, is being in church.
Were you all dressed in white?
Yeah.
Now you're black head to toe.
Exactly. Yeah. No, it was a wild experience. I mean, when I think back on going to they were Dunker Brethren Church, so which is very much kind of a way offshoot, kind of like in the Mennonite and the Amish range, and so they had very strange, or they're very different customs, and how they ended up out here is just wild. But yeah, it's just that's my earliest memories of music is in that church.
When when I read this question first, I thought about it too, and I couldn't actually remember. But now that you're saying that, I actually think my first memory of music is in the church as well,
Yeah.
and singing in the choir. But I think what, like, when I think back to like my earliest memories of music, I remember my dad had a drum group called Makasuta Singers, and they were a powwow group.
Yeah.
And he had a whole room in his house just dedicated, like, it was just the big drum, and all my
Yeah.
uncles and cousins would come and they would sit and sing. And I remember thinking, like, when I was a kid listening to that, it it only happened in that space. It didn't happen in school, so,
Yeah.
and it was always a weird experience, like, I don't know, it was like the two worlds of, you had your church songs and the songs you
Yeah.
sing in choir, and then you had these songs that your dad sang and that you like learned. He would kind of like tell us about them, but they
Yeah.
weren't like, you wouldn't go around singing them, like, you wouldn't be hearing them on the
Yeah.
radio necessarily. So yeah, it was kind of cool to hear
That
you say that, because that's what I remember too.
that's really interesting you say that, because after I started learning guitar to accompany myself, I wasn't necessarily accompanying myself these hymns I was leading in church.
Hmm.
But that was the genesis of me starting to write songs about what I saw in the community. And these are dumb songs, but they were the start. And I only remember the titles. Like there's one called "Dirty Diaper Blues." I mean, I'm 17, 18, or 19, whatever time frame that was. But it really was just um, recollecting some of the scenes in life that I see, like a lot of young folks having children way early. Yeah, and not knowing that that's a systemic issue. Um, I wrote songs from a like a parody perspective.
Hmm.
And then another song I wrote was like a TV dinner blues. And when I think about it now, it's very much a poverty, talking about poverty, but in a trying to make it funny. TV dinners you kind of associate with working class people, people that don't have much to buy, and then obviously food deserts and things like that. But I didn't make that connection at the time, but I understood it as a thing, I guess. And so as I've progressed as as a songwriter, there's always this through line of talking about working class things, or you know now life as a Navajo child. And when my first album was filled with songs about sobriety
Hmm.
and referring back to really wanting to leave the reservation because of everything that I experienced in terms of you know alcoholism, suicide. There wasn't a lot of drug use at that time back in the 80s. So that really fed a lot of my um, therapy music.
Well, I think, there's definitely a tinge of soulfulness. Maybe that's from your church years or your choir years in your music that you can really pick up in your voice, but also in the way that the music is arranged and performed. Let's get to the second song called "Mama I Cried." If Sina, you want to cue that up and we can listen to that.
Can I set that up real quick? I'm sorry.
Sure.
So the song was written really, really soon after George Floyd's death, or his murder. And as a brown person, brown human, it just really knocked me off my emotional perspective, because that can happen to people of color at any moment. I mean, unfortunately, it happens more often to black folks, black men, in that situation. But I just and I heard the story. I can't remember if I read an article or what it was, but it talked about that he was uttering his mom, or crying out for his mom, while the officer had his knee on his neck. And I just, like, that was just such a visceral picture in my mind. And at the time, there was a lot more of the racist and white drab getting really bold. And so I always felt concerned, because I travel all over the country, and anywhere I went, I just like checking to make sure I'm in a safe or populated space. But the song was really just I wrote the song, and I couldn't I wrote the song, then I performed it live on Facebook. And I couldn't finish the song singing it, because it just brought me to tears. And so fast forward, and finally got an opportunity to record the song with a band, or with myself and my band, one of my bandmates. And it seems a little bit late, but the message was still super important: abuse of authority. So, yeah.
Let's cue it up, Sina.
In these streets afraid, no one to help me get home to you. Mama, they took my life. In these streets I'll fade away. Why can't they see in me that I am your son? Mama, I died today. I called out your name in vain. People stood around me, afraid of the man with the badge. Mama, I died in pain today. My breath and my dreams taken away. I slipped off this mortal plane. It didn't have to end this way. You're okay. I heard on the news The badge was taken away. I hope that your tears have dried by now, and your soul is at peace. No more pain. Mama, I cried on the streets that fateful day. The people gathered there in rage because they lost a son to hate.
So this is Zena. I think it started. Yeah, there we go. I think it started over. Yeah, you could just play it underneath. That's fine too. This is I'll be honest. I couldn't listen to the song all the way through the first time. It took me a while. I as soon as I heard the lines, I was like, okay, yeah, this is about George Floyd. But I told you this, I think over text message. I had kind of a intimate experience with this. I moved to Albuquerque I moved to Minneapolis in 2021, and I went to a march for the nurses union, and I was just, one of my friends was working for the union at the time. And this woman came up to me. She's a very tall woman. She came up to me and she said, "Hey, you look just like my nephew." Or she said, you remind me of my nephew. And I was like, "Oh." I was like, "Was your nephew tall?" And she's like, "Yeah, he was really tall. He was a football player. I think he said, or he was an athlete," is what she said. I was like, "I'm definitely not an athlete." And he's like, "Yeah, she's like, "Yeah, George was, he was a blessing." And I was like, "Oh, George." And she's like, "Yeah, my nephew is George Floyd." And I was like, wow, it really hit me, I guess. And to see like how, it's not just like I experienced this when I was in Albuquerque, his murder, but coming to Minneapolis, just experiencing how, even despite the uprising and all these things that happened, like still how incredibly affected the community is by the murder, but also how not much really has changed, especially with policing. And specifically, like here, I was really surprised to learn that in Derek Chauvin's district in I always forget it's like the 3rd precinct, I think is what it's called, which is the East Phillips neighborhood. It's like the most diverse neighborhood in the state of Minnesota, most languages spoken, most kind of different background, but also one of the poorest places in the state. And it's also has the highest concentration of Native people off reservation in urban settings. So you have like Little Earth United Tribes, which is a housing development for Native families. It's also the neighborhood that the American Indian Movement was formed in 1968 to combat police violence. And there was a DOJ investigation of the MPD, Minneapolis Police Department, after George Floyd's murder. And they found that MPD, routinely referred to themselves as cowboys in the 3rd precinct. And Derek Chauvin actually called himself a cowboy too. And their rates of stopping Native youth, specifically like Native children, Native minors, was the highest of any, and the use of force as well as pulling a gun out. So it was like, I think it was like 19 times, MPD was 19 times more likely to pull a gun on a Native child than they were like a white adult in Minneapolis. And they were comparing this side by side to the violence against Black youth and Black people, but it got completely erased, even though the community itself doesn't erase those connections. And that, the founders of AIM would talk about how they were deeply connected with what was at the time called the Soul Patrol, which is, the black sort of patrols in the wake of the assassination of MLK, that influenced the AIM patrols, or the Indian patrols, that were also formed. But then even during the riots, there was a lot of alliances between the black and indigenous communities. But yeah, this song just like hits deep. I sorry for like going off on that, but it's I also think about how it also made me think about how I saw some videos of some Palestinian resistance leaders talking about George Floyd and how much it impacted them, and then also listening to this song and like also having those same kind of feelings as as a father, as a parent, and unimaginable what Palestine is going through right now, and Palestinians, especially in Gaza, as their children are being just annihilated by a U.S. backed, U.S. funded, U.S. led genocide. So yeah, it's just there's just a lot to say about this, and I really appreciate you taking the time to record it, and I can understand how difficult it can be. I think you're on mute, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of the responses I felt right soon after, and so like I was saying earlier, just being able to get that out is important for me personally. And the writing of the song, on heavy topics like that, I feel a reluctance to write those kinds of songs, mostly because I feel like he's from a black family, and sometimes I feel like black folks, this is kind of their area, and to speak to in terms of art, in terms of song, in terms of whatever may come from and so while I wrote it for a personal reason, and I also felt like I wanted to remember that in this way in this album. And so yeah, I am still just kind of, like you were saying, it's hard for me to listen to the song without remembering, just almost breaking down in tears, and I can't even hardly talk right now. So, but yeah.
Would you we have a request from Justine, who's one of the co-hosts, to play and talk about and discuss the song "Empty Cup." Seeing if you want to cue that one up and we can listen to it, or do you want to describe what this song was about before we listen to it?
Yeah. If you are tired of being tired, is how it starts, and that's really very much the burden of working in a capitalistic society, and you're always ending up with an empty cup, no matter what the American dream is propagandized for you, that you listen to and hear every single day on TV, radio, social media. If you get this will make your life better. You'll be happy. And it's just like, just the onslaught of that. I've always felt that ever since I started working. It's like, this is I'm getting barely anything for what I do in terms of work. And that's without knowing any of the Marxist ideas about labor, and any of the other stuff that's just and it's just like, I feel that. And so I went to the band and told them, the song is going to be a little bit different, because I want to start out singing it by myself, and then the band can come out and it ends in just kind of an angry, just kind of a punkish feel at the very end. There's something about ain't your paycheck, ain't your bailout, ain't your something. I getting older. I can't remember some of my own lyrics at times. Yeah. So, but it ends in kind of an angry punk fashion, and so I love the song for that reason. Just talking about everyday people slogging through, while all those guys up at the top are just eyes wide shut in obscene wealth.
If you are tired of being tired, if you work to the bone for the empire, if you wake up with an empty cup, if you see these suits have already mucked it up, tell your preacher man to follow the servant man's way. Stop waiting with a big plate for the poor man's payday. Tell your priesthood man to stop preying on the sacred child, and let the so-called Holy Father be rid of all that is evil and vile. If you are tired of being tired, if you work to the bone for the empire, if you wake up with an empty cup, if you see these suits have already mucked it up, tell your politician to represent the everyday working man, quit handing the spoils of his toy to the rich greedy man. Tell your Wall Street money changing man to stay away from Capitol Hill and pay his just share to the working man and stop paying wages and $1 bill. If you are tired of being tired, if you work to the bone for the empire, if you wake up with an empty cup, if you see these suits have already mucked it up, yeah, they mucked it up, yeah, they really mucked it up, I think they really mucked it up. Ain't your paycheck, ain't your income, ain't your voter, ain't your bailout, ain't your paycheck, ain't your income, ain't your voter, ain't your bailout.
The song reminds me. I used to work at Pizza Hut, and we had a closing playlist that we used to play like all the time, and it was just like "F you, I quit" kind of music.
Yeah.
Yeah, that just really, hits and it like rocks it out. We got a lot of, I don't know if
Yeah.
I've been looking at the comments in our live stream. We got a lot of people who are just really digging the music. It's a change up for us. We kind of
Yeah.
talk about some heavy political stuff, but this, I wanted to kind of break it up. I mean, the news cycle is awful, but also, what you were saying earlier is that, this music plays a role in the resistance. You can't imagine trying to inspire people with, you were talking about, oh, I didn't need a Marxist analysis to understand, class. And it's like, that's true. uh you can't inspire like people just by like preaching to them about the politics, and because it gets it can be overbearing, and it can really burn you out.
Mhm.
But for you, like how do you stay like motivated? Like what keeps you, like what's your, I guess, your muse, so to speak, in keeping you going and creating and producing this art that's truly an inspiration to a lot of us.
Yeah. Let me just rewind a little bit back to the song.
Mhm.
You uttered the words "f this job." So where it says these suits have already mucked it up, substitute that mucked with effed it up. That was the original version of the song, and I had to make it a little more radio friendly. I don't know why. It's just a decision I made at the last minute to sing it that way. But in any case, what keeps me inspired? Honestly, it's my parents and my daughter.
Mm.
For my parents, it's quality of life. It's just really, I know that's a very capitalist word to use, but honestly, I want their final years to be as comfortable as possible. And what does that mean to me as their son? It's a good bit of uh, it's a good bit of suspending what I want to do.
Mhm.
So when the opportunities come to create, like it has now with this music, it makes the it makes the music uh, a lot more meaningful because I have to take episodes of my life away from Uh, but yeah, that they are the ones. My daughter, she's a nurse in community health, and of all the crazy things, she went to community health, which is it's an unforgiving job. She works with our indigenous relatives and Mexican immigrant, and she she could work for some big hospital. It's never been about the money. And I'm glad she connected with that. I talked to her back when Trump was reelected, and we were both consoling each other a little bit about what we're about to face. I was scared for her. Her response was, "Dad, I'll be okay. I'm here for the people." "Dad, I'm here for the people." So that's what inspires me. Inspires me to keep writing songs, because I can take those moments and put them into some format to sing about,
Hmm.
and you know what comes of it, what comes of it. And I'm sorry, I can't talk about family without getting super emotional.
Well, it's really powerful. I mean, sometimes people, I think, lie when they say they're inspired by certain things, and what you're saying is very earnest and genuine. And I think in this moment in time, all of us are searching for that kind of authenticity and sincerity that's very much lacking. The empathy lacking in our, in our society, in our world. And we are it is important to show emotion, especially as men, and caretakers and things like that. And yeah, there's just nothing but love coming out of the the comments here, about doing the right thing. And you know really persisting. My mom was a educator, and I always remember that. And my brother, he's a paramedic. And like those aren't really those are kind of thankless jobs.
Yeah.
And I always imagined the things they go through or went through. My mom's passed, but to take care of people, and have nurses in the family too. And we really valorize people in this society who actually don't give anything back to society. And we really
Yeah.
dump on people who take care of us, and
Mhm.
some of our hardest days. Like my brother sees people on their sometimes on the worst day of their life. And I'm sure your daughter is the same way.
Mhm.
And I think at the end of the day, all we have is, our relations and our kinship to each other. And so that's
Yeah.
that's what, persisted through this onslaught of genocide and destruction.
Mhm.
And as we kind of close this live stream out, I have a song that I like of yours. So I would like to ask you to talk a little bit about it. Hopefully you didn't forget the lyrics. But the song that I picked out is, hold on, let me pull it up here, is Damaged Eden. It's the second track on
Oh,
your 2017 album. Uh, could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I just think it's a real fire song. I think
yeah.
musically it's a fire song, but also
Yeah.
lyrically it's a fire song.
Yeah. So the opening lyrics are "Occupy this damaged Eden." Um, of course, Eden being a kind of a biblical reference, and it was also a response to the Occupy movement in Occupy Wall Street, and then all the offshoots of it, and how everyday people gathered together to rail against the corporatocracy, I guess. And it just that's very much at the core of it. But hidden underneath it is just this just this wanting to protect Earth, Mother Earth, and just trying to jostle people, say we are killing this the only thing that the only entity that keeps us alive because of a few people's greed and resources. It talks about the greedy man in there, and then it talks about um, that they will eventually fail, as historically all empires have failed. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that. I'm just hopeful that it really does come down. The one thing that song was in response to like I was saying, the Occupy movements. I just wanted to write a song just to capture what I saw and what I felt from people doing this, because it takes a lot to take your time away from what you're normally doing, your life working for somebody else, to go in to an action and do all that. I participated in a few, and I found that I was the wrong temper for some of that, primarily because of my angry disposition. I call my music angry Indian music, and that's my that's a subtitle to the resistance rock. But I do remember being out in Albuquerque on one of the marches, and we landed inside of a bank that was supporting the oil industry, and I stayed back while everybody entered the lobby of the bank itself. So it was a big building. So I stayed back at the door. I don't know why. I just probably because I was a chicken-hearted. But it proved to be it proved to be a good thing that I stayed back, because when everybody was inside, the security guard came back around and started to lock the doors. But I was standing right there, and I stopped him from locking the door. In that little engagement with that guy, he kind of pushed the door into me. I was kind of trying to lodge myself between the door, so that it would prevent him from closing and locking. And when he did that, it just filled me with rage. And so I started to push him off so that I could swing at him. I stopped and I just pushed against him, and he fell. He started stumbling back. I was like, "Oh shit! Don't hit the curb! Don't hit the curb with your head!" And so I swung the door open, and then everybody kind of ran out, and that's kind of the end of the march. And so I just walked out and just kind of. I remember very much distinctly thinking to myself, act like you've never been part of a march. You're just walking down the street, and like you're a normal everyday citizen that just went and took some money out of the bank. So I walked way back to my truck and went home, and really just thought about it a lot. And I said, the things, the dangers that marchers have to put themselves through, or they put themselves through, was really evident to me that day. And I was back here on the res at that time, so I just thought about it, and it's like, I'm diabetic as well, so I don't know if I could honestly put myself through some jail sentence and leave my parents and being diabetic. And I it's more self-preservation than anything. Not that I didn't want to be out there on the streets. Just my anger could have gotten me in a lot of trouble. So that song is just or that story is just an example of like the way I'm able to talk about living in a capitalistic society.
Let's cue the song up, Sina.
I occupy this damaged Eden. I occupy this wasted soil. I occupy this fruitless garden. I occupy the rich man's spoil. The greedy man is ruling. He will surely fall. The masses are bleeding. The souls will hear the call. I occupy the war man's stronghold. I occupy until he fails. I occupy the rich fool's gold. I occupy, we will prevail. The greedy man is ruling. He will surely fall. The masses are bleeding. The souls were here to call. Don't get caught in the killings. Don't be part of the greed. Don't sell your soul for shillings. Don't destroy your children's deed. The greedy man is ruling. Souls are here to call. The masses are bleeding. They will surely fall. Can you see the earth is dying? Can you feel the pain is ever rising? Can you hear we are all crying? Can you hear we are all dying? Can you see the earth is dying? Can you feel the pain is ever rising? Can you hear we are all crying? Can you hear we are all crying?
Yeah, such an awesome song. Yeah, that's great. We have some comments in here. You maybe you want to reflect on that song a little bit, or I don't know
Yeah.
if that's a Moog synthesizer or what, but it really, it's really
Yeah,
far
it's a
out.
synthesizer for sure. Yeah. So this album, the whole album from 2017 was written where the song just came fast and furious. I would rehearse with the band 1 or 2 times, and then we go into the studio and record the song. So what you're hearing is very much and in just our immediate responses to what we were playing, just our very new responses to what we were playing. So this specific song, and I was listening to the album a couple of days ago, just like, man, this stuff is interesting. I don't know who that band is. So one of the challenges I had with the band was to talk about. So we used to play in a lot of bars and a lot of places like that where I felt like the message was kind of lost in the people that we were performing for. And I won't play bars very often anymore, but in this case, part of what was always catching me off guard was when occasionally people would go out and dance to our music. And so this whole album was one of the underlying inspirations, or one of the things we wanted to solve was, can we make this lyrics and music melody danceable? So Rage Against the Machine does. I mean, they get a lot of mosh pits, and they get a lot of like real angry men dancing around and not knowing what they're dancing to. And so I really felt like, can we make our music danceable? And we achieved a little bit of that, but I never released the album to any streaming services. Again, just kind of my maybe my utopian idea of music should go directly to individuals, but I'm changing my tune on that. And so the new album, and then that particular album is going to be published on all, sent out to all streaming services. So as much as I hate doing some of that, but the other thing I'll offer is that if people really want the music, please reach out to the producer or whoever in our chats, and I'll send you a download link for free for the folks in this audience of the 2 new songs and any new songs that come with it down the road, because we are planning to eventually do a full album. There's songs about reservation love, which is a crazy song I wrote about my first 2 girlfriends. But it's a great song. And then there's other songs about, like, one talking about Custer and his role in the killing of Indian people. And then a variety of different songs like that, mostly political music. But yeah, so if you're interested in this music hits with you, please let me know. Looks like there's an email put up for Sina. So you can request it, and then Sina can distribute the email list with the download links, and yeah, I think that'll work.
Cool. Yeah, thanks so much for sharing that with our audience here. There's a lot. You can't say it on this end, but on the YouTube end, there's a lot of funny comments. There's also a lot of genuine and sincere comments, just thanking you for joining the show this morning. I just want to read this one from Millie, who wrote this thing. It was cracking me up. It's directed at me. She's like, "So glad I didn't write Nick off as a reactionary. Ha ha ha. This live stream was lit AF." So you redeemed me in the eyes of Millie, who's been
right. Redemption.
You saved me a subscriber, so shout out to Millie. But yeah, as for those of you who stayed this long, there's Sina's email. Sina's email, is in the chat if you guys want to reach out and get the work, or excuse me, get the music, the downloads. There was another question that Millie had asked about how do you not burn out, and maybe if you want to take us out on that question, answering that question, but also where people can find your work. You have a wonderful Instagram page with all of your beautiful art, your jewelry,
Yeah.
but also if you guys have like a Bandcamp page that people can follow just to stay up to date on the latest updates from your band.
Okay. Yeah. So for the jewelry, you can always show up at jj.otero.art. And so that's focused mostly on the visual art stuff side of what I do. And then for the music, you can follow Son of Huelde, SONOFHWEELDI. And you can just search for that. And there's an Instagram page for that. And then also a Facebook page. I don't have any websites for anything. They're real cumbersome to keep managed and all that. But yeah, those are the places where you can find both all of my art, from jewelry to then also to music. And thank you for all of that. And then eventually, like I said, April 1st is the when I'll be pushing out all the music from the last album and the current album to to all the streaming services, and you should be able to buy them from iTunes, I believe. I don't know. I haven't done this in a long time, so it's very different how things get published now. So, but in any case, yeah, that's the places where you can find me. And as far as burnout, honestly, moving away from working day to day, 40 hours a week, American dream nonsense has really helped me with a lot of that. So my day to day is creating, and everybody's a natural creator in some sense of form. And while we create, we're able to and to be honest, I don't want to go kind of diving into the whole meditation thing, but that has really been an important thing. There's a lot of parallels in meditation to how we are as indigenous peoples.
Mhm.
For me, it's really very much a resetting and a repowering of my own personal life, because otherwise I'd be an angry mess all the time. And so the anger builds from everything you see, from Palestine to the current government, even all the iterations of U.S. governments or U.S. presidents. I see it constantly. I hear it constantly, as well. I consume it on social media, and at the end of the day, I have to remind myself. Like, I have a backboard back there that talks about, it's kind of a mission statement for my jewelry work, but then it also applies to daily life. And so those are the things I use. They're little tools to help me navigate, and then also reset, sit down, be quiet. I don't want to sound like a hippie, because that's not really what it is. But remember that when I was talking about when I first got back, the lack of light pollution, but the lack of noise pollution. Throughout all of the music, all the songs, you hear that pollution in all the songs, whether it's in a distorted guitar, whether it's in a real vapid lead part by the synthesizer player. It's all in there. It's really just that din of constant struggle. And so how do we get away from that? And to me, I'm remind myself of my family, of the beautiful things I create with my hands, those are my moments for unplugging from the noise.
Well, thanks so much, JJ, for joining us. It's just good to catch up with you, man.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
hopefully next time I'm down there, we can sit down and eat some tamales or something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe Cleo used to send me care packages of chili up here. You know, because that's her medicine is food, and your medicine is music and art, man. So I really appreciate it. You come from a really powerful, beautiful family, and just really thank you for joining us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the time.